Hey, welcome to the California Real Estate Investor Podcast. Today I have with me Jorden Angel, and he is an expert in mobile home and RV parks. He has experience both on the ownership equity side and on the management and turning them around. We're going to dive into the deals that he's done, and we're going to talk about the subject overall. So Jorden, tell me, first of all, let's start off with why mobile home and RV parks? Why would someone invest in these?
Oh man, there's many reasons. First of all, I'm happy to be here, Alan. You are the man, the
Thank
myth,
you.
the legend. So it's an
Right.
honor. Thank you so much. Mobile home and RV parks, those are a rare breed. You have to have a certain mentality to get into those. But those who do, it can be very lucrative. It can be very profitable, and it's for a good cause as well. I would say one of the main reasons why mobile home and RV parks, from an investor standpoint, is one, you're dealing with low income housing. So, particularly that's the majority of mobile home and RV parks, right? It's more of the
Right.
affordable range, depending on where you are. And so, when you look at the current real estate markets and when you look at how the market can just shoot up and it's so unaffordable, what do people resort to? People need housing. That is just a given, right? So, what is it
Right.
that people resort to when the market has been so extreme, especially in today's time? Low income housing, affordable housing.
Right.
So, you can almost think of mobile home and RV parks as that safety net. It's almost blow up proof.
Totally.
When the bubble pops, this mobile home and RV park it gets bigger and better.
All right.
Um,
And I can agree with that on experience because I owned multifamily during the Great Recession. So 2009, stuff's hitting the fan, like 2010, things are ugly. And I'm in these apartment buildings, I'm owning them, running them. And people were really concerned for me. They're like, what's going on with your buildings? Like, I've heard real
right,
estate's a disaster. And our rents did not go down at all. As a matter of fact, one of the buildings was in Texas, South Texas, where they struck oil, and the rents
right,
actually went up during the Great Recession during that time. And regardless of the oil or not, the bottom line was these apartments were very affordable. I was in a working class neighborhood, a working class budget. You could rent an apartment for 600, 700 bucks a month. And
wow.
so people that were not buying homes, people that could not afford to do other things, were moving into these apartments because they were nice. We renovated them, we made it nice, and they were affordable. And even in a down economy, it's a great investment.
It is. It's a great investment. And the other biggest thing from an investment standpoint is that good debt, right? We always talk about good debt, and one of the biggest things is depreciation. And
Yeah.
so mobile home and RV parks have an incredible amount of depreciation that is much higher than stick built homes. So that
Yes.
is,
Yes.
yeah, so that's a huge plus in regards from an investor standpoint.
Yeah, we pulled this wording up off the internet. Now, Jordan and I are not CPAs. We're real estate agents and investors. That's
Full
our
disclaimer.
disclosure. We're not here giving financial advice. I pulled this off of the internet. You can go find out and ask your CPA yourself. But mobile home parks can provide, on average, around a 17-year depreciation schedule. Now, just listen if that doesn't make sense to you. One can roughly depreciate 50 to 75% of the purchase price. Compare this with apartments where you depreciate over 27 and a half years, and then commercial properties that you depreciate over 39 years, and you gain a significant amount of sheltered earnings. So what that means is normally, you can deduct so much. Let's say you have $1 million, you divide that in depreciation. You can divide that for an apartment building by 27 and a half. You deduct that little bit each year. For a
Hmm.
commercial property, it'd be 39 years. You deduct that each year. For a mobile home, it's saying 17 years, so almost half the time. And on top of that, you can depreciate sometimes 50 to 75% of your purchase price. So all of your income, your gain, a lot of that that's coming in off of this could be sheltered. That's massive. So
It's absolutely massive. It's really all about the depreciation, and the fact that because people get scared with real estate, they get scared with
right.
bubbles and they get scared with the uncertainty. And there's the only thing that's certain is that people need housing. And when you have affordable housing that you're investing in, it's almost like it's almost a guarantee. I hate to say guarantee, but that's pretty much the case, you know? And so those are the two biggest values on the why.
All right. So I have here that you have been involved in, well, you have equity in six of these mobile home and RV parks, but you've managed 13 of them in 4 different states. Yeah.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So let's go back a little bit in time and take us back to where did you start? How did you get on this trajectory in the mobile home park business?
Well, yeah. So right now, currently, we work together. I'm a real estate agent here in Santa Barbara, and we were chatting a little bit, and so my whole background was property management, and
Mm.
I started off at a company in Sacramento that had a vision, and the vision was to be the number one mobile home and RV park owner in the country, if not the world, and I really bought into that, and I believed in that, and but I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know anything about property management. I didn't know where to start. And so they threw me at the very bottom of the bottom, which was an administrative assistant. I was going to school at the time. I was doing night school, and I was making $10 an hour as some administrative assistant. But I was the first one in that building, and I was the last one out. And I made it a point. I said, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to commit. And so I learned everything from the bottom up. Within that first year, I became a regional manager, and I started managing other communities, as I got to gain more knowledge. And I think the biggest thing there was I had to just be resourceful. Not everyone's going to hand it to you. Not everyone is going to come over to you and give you lessons on how to be a good property manager or whatever business you're in. You have to seek
Right.
that. You have to find it. You have to be a little nosy. You got to pick and choose, when the right times are to do it so you don't annoy anyone. But that's what I did. I just picked the brains of the smart people that were around me, and I grew from that. I saw the things that they did wrong, and I saw the things that they did great. And so, by my second and third year, I was managing 6 parks, and I ended up managing 13 communities in 4 different states, and it taught me a lot. It was great.
Love it. And so like the knowledge you were getting by working in that field was way more valuable than that $10 an hour, right?
Right. Yeah. So that you got to weigh those pros and cons, right? Like you got to say,
Right.
oh man, it's $10 an hour. That sucks. But the knowledge that you're getting, the hands-on knowledge, that's not something that you're learning in school. That
Right.
what you're getting is life business lessons that are valuable to help take you to that next level. And so that's what I realized that made it all worth it. And the money came,
Love it.
the money ended up coming, but you had to earn it.
Absolutely. All right, let's talk a bit about finding these deals because I know you were involved a little bit on the finding side. You know what the game was there, and then also the due diligence side. It's like you found one, and then you got to figure out, okay, well, is this one going to work for us? Where's the upside? And then the turning it around side, right? And then there actually comes the management. That's the real gold. We'll talk about that last, about how you turn these parks around. But the search, how do you find these opportunities?
Yeah, great question. That's the biggest thing, right? Where's the gold? It's all about relationships. And I'd say the best deals were the ones that we got from people where we've established good business relationships with. And so, the first thing would be to establish a good broker, right? We had a really good commercial broker, and so any off-market deal or anything of that they heard that was coming on the market that they thought was a good deal, they brought it to us first. They knew we had the investors. They knew we were solid. We did some deals together already. So they would bring us those exclusive deals off market. And that was the biggest thing. So establish a good relationship with a broker. You can do other things like look on LoopNet. You can do the whole LoopNet approach and search for deals that way. But it's really in that inside of knowing someone where you can get the good deal.
Yeah, absolutely. And that broker developed this trust with you, right? Because you guys would close, you'd have your ducks in a row. And when it came to closing time, you'd get the deal done and they got paid and then they'd bring you the next one, right?
Yep, and we were just shoving them out like candy. But the other thing too is we treated our brokers well. And, it's the same thing like I do here on the real estate side. Even though, let's say, title officers, escrow officers are getting paid, every time I get a deal done with them, I'm bringing them a bottle of wine. I'm giving them a nice
Right.
gift card to a restaurant, right? Because
Right.
you want to cherish those good business relationships, because those are the ones that are really going to be with you to the very end, right? Those are the ones
Yeah.
that you work with constantly. So we do great things with them, and we'd have nice dinners, and we establish a friendship.
So then you're picking up these parks in California, and then it gets to the point from what you and I were talking about that it was hard to find the amount of deals because of the growth rate you guys were on to satisfy your growth rate. It was hard to find the amount of deals. So you started going outside California. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. The owner had a vision. His vision was just to be the biggest and largest and the best. And in California was just, it's tough to buy in California, just across the board, right? You know this, it's expensive.
Yep.
So we just decided to venture outside of California, and we went to our closer states. And so we ventured in Arizona, we ventured in Nevada and Oregon, and those were really lucrative areas to purchase. I still kind of think they are now to this day. The real estate there is phenomenal. So that's where we ventured. We just started venturing there, and when you do that, it gets a little scary because you don't know the laws. You don't know, what you can and can't do. And so that's kind of where I came in.
Awesome. So that is the perfect segue for due diligence and investigate. So let's say you find the opportunity, right? You find the property, and now you've got to figure out, is this going to work? Where do you start?
This is where the fun begins. This is I love this stuff because it can get dirty or it can get clean, and when it's clean, it's not as fun. The first thing is your due diligence, right? You're in escrow, you're making all the steps. The first thing is I think the first and the biggest thing, I'm just going to get right to it. The first and the biggest thing is you got to interview that community manager. That community manager is your lifeline. That community manager, the one on site, is going to be your eyes, your ears, your muscle. It's going to be the one enforcing the rules. It's going to be your advocate. It's your biggest advocate. So you got to find a community manager that is on the same page as you in management, right? You got to find someone who's going to rise to the occasion, rise to the moment, and rise to your expectations. Now, there's probably a reason why that person is selling that property, right? There could be numerous
Right.
reasons. More times than none, that community manager doesn't work out, but you always give them a shot. You always you interview them, and you kind of lay down the expectations to see how they'll take it. Most of them aren't getting paid enough, so you got to work that into your budget. You got to work that in your pro forma. But that's your biggest thing, is find a amazing community manager that has your back, because they're going to be the ones advocating for you and your investors, right? The next thing is you got to walk the park. You got to walk the park. You have to see what the integrity are of the homes. You have to see the actual infrastructure of the property as well.
Right.
With mobile home and RV parks, there's electric pedestals, there's gas meters, obviously sewer lines that you want to get cameraed. So you want to do those normal inspections. You want to take a look at those utilities, the infrastructure itself, because if there's a large issue going on, you have to get a quote on what that's going to be to fix it. And you got to build that in your performance. The good news is that when you buy a dilapidated park, which is what we specialized in, we would come in and we'd buy those parks for cheap. And then we
Yeah.
would build that foundation, right? We'd build that infrastructure up. We increase that value by a lot, and then we'd refinance. And so the good news is when you find a park with a bad infrastructure and you've built that in your pro forma and you bust that out, the good news is the return on that is a lot greater than already buying a park that's at the top.
Hi, it's Alan here from the California Real Estate Investor Podcast. I want to share with you two cool free resources. First of all, our Facebook group, California Real Estate Investor. I'll put a link in the show notes. You can connect with us there, share stories, share about what you're doing, where you are in California, and we look forward to that. And then secondly, the website, the CaliforniaRealEstateInvestor.com. I've just uploaded a free mini course about flipping luxury homes. You can download there. If you're flipping homes homes and you want to make more profit per deal by going higher end with your flips, that's a great resource for you. So check that out. I look forward to connecting with you on the other side. Yeah, so you actually get excited as long as the numbers are there. Doesn't matter that all those things are a wreck, right? Because you've got the
Totally.
system that you follow. And tell us about that system. So that time frame is the first year or two. I'm assuming the first year or two you're kind of cleaning up the park, and then you've got the system you're going to take it through to get to the point where you can refinance and get some long-term debt on it, pull your money that you've been putting into it out. What does that time frame look like?
Yeah, great question. It's typically a 5-year time frame, just depending on the deal and kind of what we've discovered. So, a performa, we're looking. Sometimes we're even a 3-year time frame for a refi. So, I'd say the first year or so, you're really just establishing yourself in the community, and then probably around year 2 or 3. You're already, if it's an infrastructure issue, you're fixing those right away, right? So I'd say from year 1 to year 3, you're repairing infrastructure. You're repairing the spaces. You're improving the appearance of the park. You're making it look nicer. When you do that, you can charge more. So I'd say around year 2 or 3, what we do, because a lot of communities don't do this, is we're passing through our utilities. Now, every state has different laws. Every state has different ways on how you can do that, and some take longer than usual. That's our next steps, because when you pass through a utility, that acts almost as a rent increase. Remember, it's a little touch and feel too, because you don't want to piss off your tenants. You don't want them to just blow up and leave the whole park altogether, because then you got nothing. So it's a little touch and go. You have to be strategic with how you do it. But what we usually do is we pass through our utilities, we let that settle for a good year or so, and then boom, we'll start doing our set rent increases. In this, we typically do that after we've done a decent amount of infrastructure improvement. It goes a long ways with the tenants, right? Hey, tenants, we're going to improve your community. We're going to make it look better. It's going to function better. And you know what? We're asking for you just to pay for your own utilities, And what that does is they're more forgiving, they're more understanding when you do it that way, and it goes over, because the worst thing you want is just constant calls of, why are you raising my rent? Why are you doing this? So you want to have a reason. So we do that usually around year 3. We have already improved the infrastructure. We've already passed the utilities. And then around 4 or 5, we're starting to smooth still. We're starting to see the cash flow. We're starting to improve the occupancy of the park, right? Yeah, that's the biggest thing, is you want to get those spaces dialed in. You want to get the infrastructure. You want it to look nice, so that when you have turnover rents, which are new people coming in, you can charge that market rent. And so I'd say around 4 or 5, we're cash flowing and we're ready to refi.
Yeah, because you hit that year 4 or 5, and you've streamlined your expenses, and your income's going up, and you're recording it on your books, and then you can take those books to the banks and they'll reappraise the property. It's going to appraise for higher. You'll be able to pull out all that money you put in and then be able to hold it, cash flow it, and pay that debt down, right?
Exactly.
Beautiful.
Yeah. The depreciation on that's how that comes into play, right? Because when you're refinancing, that value is much greater. So that definitely helps. And keep in mind too, our goal is to do that in 3 years. It really just depends on the community, but we've done it in 3 years, where investors are literally getting their money back and more, which is huge. It really just depends on the park. If you buy a park and going into that community, it needs new water lines, and you already have a proposal to do that, then that's the first thing you're doing. The first thing you're doing is you're going in there and you're just replacing that. And then you're passing through the community, the utilities the next year, and you're cash flowing at that point. So there's ways to do it a lot quicker than 5.
So I would assume as well, on your due diligence, when you are making this transition outside of just California parks and you're looking at new states, then you've got another layer of due diligence, because what you mentioned, you've got some different laws, you got some potential, is there rent control? Is there not rent control? What are the utility rules? You got a whole new set of regulations to figure out in each state that you expand into, right?
Yeah, that's the reason why people are scared to venture out. And that's what my position was at the company. I was to take on those communities outside of California. And when you have a designated player who knows the laws and knows what could work or not, you can build that in Performa It makes investing so much easier because you don't have to try to figure that out on your own. You already have someone who can do it. That was also part of our due diligence, right? Is, what can and can't we do in a
Yeah.
park? So that was a huge factor.
Okay. So before we go into the turning around the actual park and maybe even a horror story of
I got
yours,
some for you.
before we hit that, let's talk briefly about the financing because we mentioned on the back end, yeah, you're going to refinance out. So going into the deal, you are raising money. I mean, obviously, you built up a reputation over years. Maybe in the beginning, it was just like family and friends and a couple people going in on one, and then it leads to another, but it
Hmm.
gets to the point where you're either way, even if it's someone listening, it's their first deal or they're on their third, fourth, fifth, 10th deal, you're raising money from others, from investors wanting to go in on this type of an opportunity, and then you're also bringing to the table some bank financing, correct? So walk us
Yeah.
through a little bit of how that initial purchasing financing works.
Totally. Yeah. Obviously, different scenarios, different ways that you can do it. I mean, the one thing that I would say is, as a new investor, or let's say a new owner, you'd be so surprised how many people you know or they know have money and want to invest. It's a lot easier than you think to raise capital that you don't have to pay out of your own pocket. You just have to just ask people. That's all it is, right? And
Right.
so they may know someone who's got 100 grand that they're looking to invest, and that's huge for you, right? So it's all about just having those conversations, building those relationships. You got to start with friends and family and work your way around. But yes,
Yeah.
your goal is to own at least 51% of the community. That's your goal. You want to
Right.
be majority owner. There's different clauses and different rules and stuff like that you can build into the operations agreement and stuff like that. But we could get a loan, let's say, that would take over, our 51%, right? And so it's just a loan from a bank, and then you're raising the other capital from investors,
Right.
and they get the other 49%. And that's something that I would probably recommend, because your goal is to not put your own money into it. Your goal is to
Right.
raise the money. And then when you get that bank loan and you're refinancing, you're paying it off, and
Yeah.
you're keeping whatever that difference is. So
Yeah.
that's typically how we would do it.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, you're going into a deal with none of your own money, but what you are bringing to the table is a massive amount of expertise because you've learned, how to do these deals. You're bringing to the table the opportunity. You found it. You're doing the due diligence on it, and so you're winning over the trust of people seeing that this plan actually makes sense, right? That's an awesome way to put it together. So, okay, let's dive into the actual turnaround of the deal. So now we found it. We've done our due diligence. We bought this bad boy, which I'm sure some of them have been really, really interesting. Walk us through. Maybe just give us one up front. Give us a really rough one that you took on, and how did you approach that? What'd that look
I,
like?
there's a couple parks that come to mind. My first park that I ever took over was a brutal one. It was in Sparks, Nevada, and it was on this street that was just one of those streets, man. And right next to Reno, great location. It was a great location in Reno, but it was just one of those streets, and it was brutal. You walked in there and you didn't know what you were getting yourself into. I would say probably 99% of the time when you walk into these dilapidated parks, you'll see a pit bull. And in those pit bulls, you just don't trust those suckers. They can get out, and they're pretty wild. But I would say that was the scariest one. And then there was another one in Clear Lake. That one in Clear Lake, California, forget it, man. It was so scary. I remember we just bought the park, and I had to sleep there overnight. And it was so bad, I had to bring a gun with me, and I was sleeping with that pistol next to my pillow, because it was bad. It was one of those bad parks where they're
Uh,
so badly ran that people just have their own laws in there. They just do whatever they want to do. I mean, you're finding needles, you're finding, I don't know how much detail you really want me to get in here, but
No, but it's basically like welcome to Vietnam, right? Here's your new park you're helping us. Here's your new park you're helping us turn around. Here's your gun. Here's your bulletproof vest. Let's go. Let's do this. Let's turn this
go,
sucker around.
yeah, go figure it out. Exactly. It was the Wild Wild West out there, and we didn't buy the expensive five-star parks. We bought two-star, one-star parks, and that's what we did. And we had to just go in there and we had to clean it up. And there were some scary times. There were definitely some
Yeah.
scary times, but you weed those out, right? You weed out the bad cookies because they end up going away anyways. They don't want to abide by the rules. They end up getting evicted, and the good ones that are there in the community, they stay and they help you. They let you know who the bad ones are. Because they want to improve the community as well.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
how I survived. Because honestly, I
Yeah.
would talk to the good tenants, and they would say, stay away from this one at 9 o'clock. Gunshots are going off. So you got to be careful. But
I
it's
remember can totally relate to this because like I'm having flashbacks right now as we're talking of an apartment building that we purchased. This was a 74 unit fixer and it had been mismanaged. I don't think the owners had ever even been to the building. They lived in a completely
right.
different state. And this thing, I mean, when I would go there, especially at night, I did not feel safe. I actually carried pepper spray with me. It was just it was so intimidating, but the surrounding area was okay. Like I knew I could turn this thing around, and it was just there was certain people that lived there that were the majority of that tension. Man, it was rough, but my goal was, and I remember saying this, I said I want to make this community, this apartment building safe enough so that a single mom could move in here with her
Right.
little kid or kids and feel safe and feel like she could call this home. And sure
Right.
enough, we had it there in less than a year. Less than a
Good for
year,
you.
and it verified there was single moms moving in with their kid, and they felt safe. I'd go out at night and they were like having a barbecue or the kids are playing, and it's like, wow, what a turnaround, right? It
And,
feels
and
so
is
rewarding.
Yeah, so that's what it was about, right? It was really about building those dilapidated communities because they were in good areas. They were run down, right? The owners just weren't doing their jobs. But that, you're absolutely right, is one of the most rewarding feelings when you can bring that one-star, two-star park up to a four-star park and everybody's happy. So it is good. It's scary.
Love it.
It is scary at times, but in the end, it's worth it.
Turning around the park, you're in there, you're working with the manager, you're eventually either figuring out if that manager is going to work, you're pulling in possibly a new manager if that manager is unable to meet the benchmarks and the accountability and the goals you have for the park. You're cleaning things up. You just got this whole thing humming along. If I am someone going back to someone who's maybe early in this process, right? So maybe I want to get into this. I love this trajectory. I love the idea of it. I want to learn more about it. I want to get started, maybe working for a mobile home investment company or working for a mobile home park and helping this. That's where you were, and you built into it, which was interesting. Sweat equity. So yeah, you
Mm,
started off, with this $10 an hour job, but it got to the point where as you're getting into management, you were able to, or they offered you a piece of equity. And tell us
yep.
just a little bit about that and how that worked and how that could potentially work for someone.
Yeah, no, that's great actually, because if you're really trying to build something and you're a new manager or owner or whatever the case is, and you don't have the capital to pay someone $150,000 a year, you could pay them a competitive salary, and then you could basically say, look, any park that you work on, right, I'm going to give you a little piece of equity called sweat equity. And so that is going to be something that you get to earn and you can have, right? And that's also part of that compensation. And so what that does is it incentivizes that manager to do a much better job because now they got some ownership. Now they got some
Yeah.
skin in the game. So it's not just you paying them an hourly wage and just hoping that they have the same mentality as you. Now they have an incentive to do a better job because they got ownership. They want to see it succeed. So
Love it.
in my case, yeah, I went from $10 an hour to making a good amount of salary. And what I did was I actually lowered my salary. And I lowered my salary so where I got a decent amount. I could make a good living, I could save some money. But then the other part of my salary, I negotiated to where I would take that and any new park that we acquired that I managed would be get thrown in as sweat equity. I did that, and I have equity in six parks right now, and they're cash
You
flowing.
still
So
have that.
I still got it. I don't work for the companies anymore, but I'm getting
Right.
paychecks every quarter.
Right. Yeah, you're living the dream as a Santa Barbara agent, real estate agent, and you're still an investor. You still own all those pieces of equity in those parks that you pulled off just with sweat equity. I love it.
Yeah, yeah, it's really a great technique if you're trying to build something and you just don't have the capital to pay them a lot at the time. Having equity is really worth it. You don't need to give them a lot, just enough to, 2%, something that just seems like now they have a little more skin in the game and they'll fight harder for you. They'll work harder for you. And it's important to have someone like that.
Love it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. I just want to thank you so much for sharing your story. Everything from the war story to just the walking these projects through like complete victory, right? Stories. It's just interesting because you know some people listen to this and they also have to understand like what you were doing was even just in the mobile home park industry was a niche. It's a value add niche. Like there's other people that are buying parks that are already done, and that's a strategy, right? You don't they don't
Totally.
This isn't the only strategy to mobile home park investing. It's a very lucrative one. It's a lot of sweat equity. There's a lot that goes into it, but it's a very profitable one that people have been doing this for decades and decades and decades before us. And so I just want to thank you for sharing your story and being on with us today.
Absolutely, Alan. It's such a pleasure, man. You are a legend, and I appreciate your time and I appreciate the opportunity. So thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah, talk to you soon.
Hey, thanks for listening to the California Real Estate Investor Podcast. We'd love a review on whatever podcast platform you listen to this on. Also, visit us at thecaliforniarealestateinvestor.com or our Facebook group, The California Real Estate Investor. We look forward to connecting with you and encouraging you on your real estate investing journey.